Let's take a look at some information and charts on REN for Brave New Coin. So REN is a wrapper which does its job through a series of dark pools and is analogous to something like wrapped BTC, which I'll also discuss in the video as a comparison. But just as I discussed the DEX aggregation stuff, I would wrap, no pun intended, the wrappers into that, in that DEX ag and wrapping will be popular and in demand so long as we have the need for it on several chains. You know, if BTC and ETH are the winning chains at the end of the day and everything else goes by the wayside, if Uniswap is the winner over everything else and everything else goes by the wayside, you know, there's less of a reason to have DEX ag, there's less of a reason to have wrappers. I don't think that's necessarily the case. I think the need for DEX ag, the need for wrappers, the need for everything to talk to everything else, interoperability, inter-blockchain liquidity, as they call it, I think that's here to stay. I don't think that's going to go anywhere anytime soon. So even though the metrics for REN may not look pretty at the moment, both fundamental and TA-wise, I think it's important to keep it in your radar, certainly. So REN BTC or REN, REN whatever token is available on many chains as far as wrapping stuff. If we look under the hood, it doesn't look like, most of it's BTC, which really makes sense at the end of the day, at least on Ethereum. Now it's interesting they have Binance Smart Chain enabled as well for REN VM, so you can wrap stuff in the Binance Smart Chain for the Binance Smart Chain. Total volume, accumulative volume has continued to increase pretty strongly over time on REN. So it's, it doesn't get a lot of coverage or press maybe, but people are using it and doing stuff with it. Now it doesn't have KYC AML components, so it may be attracting nefarious activity in some ways, as opposed to stuff like wrapped BTC, which has strict KYC AML. But nevertheless, people are using it for whichever reason. If we look at Binance Smart Chain, again, BTC at the top of that list as far as wrapping or cumulative volume. So their own TVL reported at 777 million. That includes basically the masternode component, I think, as far as the value. I could be wrong there on how they calculate their specific values, but like I was mentioning with the dark pools, the masternodes effectively require bonded REN to participate in the dark node pools. Each node is required to bond 100,000 REN. So we can also look at stuff like dark nodes over time, which they may or may not show on the website, but very similar to Dash or any masternode proof of stake type system. It's good to see, do people believe in the masternodes over time? It's just like hash rate, really. Is hash rate increasing over time? Is hash rate decreasing over time? Not only is there a direct supply-demand component with proof of stake coins like this, or proof of stake type coins like this, but it shows you the type of mentality of the people holding REN, holding Dash, holding any masternode coin. Are they in it for the long term, right? Are they hodlers? Do they think this has a future? It's got to start there at the very least. So they have 1,774 registered dark nodes with 17% of the circulating bonded. I believe that's what that's referring to. Yeah. So it's early days for REN for sure, but especially when you look at the metrics. They're going to run into problems from a regulatory perspective, clearly. But it definitely fits the ethos of crypto, which is maximum decentralization enabling activities. According to DeFi Pulse, also around 777 million locked in REN VM. This has increased substantially, basically from December to mid-February, late February, very similar to Aave, where everything sort of ballooned and has collapsed a little bit over the past few months as people have moved elsewhere, BSC namely, Binance Smart Chain, to have their fun at a lower fee cost. Just comparing that to DeBank, their total is much lower, so I don't really know. They may not be including the BTC part of this. I'm not sure, but it's always good to look at multiple data sources, especially with DeFi stuff. Not everybody's going to be on the same page as far as what they're reporting and where and why. So REN would be much higher on this list. Looking at that 777 figure versus what DeBank has them here. And if we look at wrapped BTC in the red here versus REN BTC in the green, circulating supplies, both had increased substantially into late 2020, pulled back some, and there's definitely been a divergence here between minting on REN versus wrapped BTC minting. Most of the wrapped BTC stuff is Alameda Research, Sam's outfit, FTX, and the REN BTC stuff, again, there's no KYC AML, so you don't really know who it is, but if you are an institution, you most likely have to go the KYC AML route, so it's probably unlikely that REN ever eclipses wrapped BTC as far as total circulating coins from that regard alone. And that's a lesson for all of the decentralized exchanges. Contra to crypto narratives, enabling a KYC AML component in some way, so, permissioned pools, ZRX has talked about this for a long time, will enable increased liquidity because of institutional players who are required to be in that KYC AML environment, right? So REN, unlikely ever to be a part of that picture. It really makes the most sense to me for something like REN to have like wrapped Monero even exists somewhere probably, but on something, it's not listed on REN yet, but of all the stuff that makes the most sense to me for wrapped Monero, it's stuff like REN, where it's completely attempting to be like the Tor of wrapping, right? If we look at transaction counts and transaction values, both peaked in late February and have come off quite a bit since then. Not too bearish, but really everything DeFi looks just like this. Peaks in late February, pulled back significantly, is figuring out what to do now with BSC in the picture and ETH fees being where they are, and layer 2 may or may not be coming soon, all this stuff going on with ETH. So it's still early days, there's still growing pains, obviously, with all this stuff. Definitely take that into account, but this isn't a super bullish picture for REN, the token, based on transactions per day. Even if we zoom in, it doesn't look, anything that's holding a range doesn't look super bullish. And that's part of it's just what it is. You're not going to be wrapping stuff on REN nonstop, right? For the most part, most likely. Some of these peaks and troughs are speculation related, surely, especially late February. So that's also important to consider. Active addresses, just the same, peaked in late February, have come way down since then. NVT, inverse metric of economic utility, has changed significantly since they enabled wrapped BTC, basically. And there's been a lot more on-chain activity. NVT is suggesting that price is more and more in alignment with on-chain activity relative to market cap. It's not as overbought as it was in March, certainly. And if you're trading NVT based on ranges of highs and lows, you want to buy where NVT is the lowest and sell where NVT is the highest if you treat it as an oscillator. So you're selling any local highs, you're buying any local lows in NVT. On a coin-by-coin basis, you can't really compare NVTs across coins because they're all different. They all do different things, but just keep that in mind. So if I'm bullish, I want to see active addresses pop up. I want to see transactions per day pop up, that sort of thing in the coming weeks. If we look at the technicals, starting with the MA multiplier, so this is the half-year MA in the green. In the red is 4 times the green MA, and the white line here is just the midline between the two. So this does require backtesting, which is what people love to ask about whenever I bring up TA anything. They're like, have you backtested that strategy? So the best part about this specific indicator is it tells you the buy zone, it tells you the sell zone, it tells you exactly how it looked at every point in time before today, and the backtesting is right in front of you. So for REN specifically, I like how it, again, snipes the tops and bottoms. I mean, what else do you want in an indicator, right? It tells you when to buy, it tells you when to sell. End of story. There's really very little interpretation here, other than, you can buy continuously when we're below the 183 MA in this case, which was currently around 65 cents. You're selling anything above 280 in the future, plus this will continue to move up. So it suggests additional downside as far as trading this indicator alone. Now you can adjust the multiplier, you can adjust the MA itself, but collectively you want it to look really like this. That's why I adjusted it from 5x to 4x multiplier, because it just looked better on the 4x multiplier. It tells you the exact tops almost to the day, even back here. So this looks really good. going forward, to look at this stuff. If this DeFi stuff has enough data to look at, this is certainly something that I'll be looking at for sure. So right now it's telling me buy 65 cents or lower. It's kind of in a no man's land as far as expectations here. And if we look at the trend metrics, it's above the 200-day moving average, still quite far above it. It's below the cloud. So the cloud and 200 position is not in alignment. Trend-wise, it's definitely a mixed bag there. The monthly S1 pivot and the 200-day moving average is around 70 cents. So for me, this is a sit and wait. I'd much rather watch this go sideways or break down than try to get into this here personally. Just looking at what's happened previously before any of these breakouts, it's been above the 200, it's been above the cloud. You had this massive consolidation period. It went above the 200, above the cloud before going again. So I don't think there's any risk of like getting left behind by waiting, because historically it's been pretty quick to tell you where the good entries are, at least from what I'm looking at. And if anything, it tells you, this was a multi-month consolidation. This was a multi-month consolidation. This may once again be a multi-month consolidation. So it's just telling me to be patient. Again, here it went below the 200-day moving average. Here it went mainly to the 200-day moving average and not that far below it. So everything I'm looking at just says wait and see here on REN. It's not really a massive buy zone for me. The REN BTC chart looks very bearish. It not only is below the cloud, but it also got denied at the 200-day moving average several times. You can see these attempts over and over and over again to break that, and it hasn't. Now it's at a new local low. It's a new multi-month local low. Maybe this is even some sort of gross looking head and shoulders reversal. I wouldn't touch this until it's way down here. Sub 1,000 sats, I think, is a good place based on the chart and the trend metrics to start taking a stab at things. This did have an Adam and Eve back here. So again, it's not like it just reverses randomly based on magic, right? There is a chart pattern telling you that there's a W double bottom, it's an Adam and Eve, a V and a U. There's your buy, right? So again, it's just telling me to be patient with this specific chart. And it had this insane looking head and shoulders way back here too that broke down at the 200. So very similar repeating itself type patterns, even though none are perfect and none are textbook. It's cluing me in whenever I'm looking at chart patterns, even if it's not a perfect fit. It gives me pause to say, okay, the market's trying to say something. The hive mind is saying it's selling off every high it can, and you're going to see some capitulation as it starts to break lows. And I think that's what we're seeing with ETH on the ETH pair. This may not be directly tradable in a lot of places, but again, you see the same thing. You see this triple bottom before breaking up. You see this triple top before breaking down. And now we're just in what looks in free fall as far as triple bottom down here, inverted head and shoulders type fractal. It just looks like it's in free fall at this point on the ETH pair. So it's definitely a strong avoid for me on that pair. So all in all, the fundamentals are weak based on on-chain metrics. I think it's early days for stuff like DEX ag and or wrapping, multi-chain wrapping. You kind of need a reason to have, a wrapper between everything. Multiple chains. Ideally, the more chains REN is on, probably the better. If it's on DOT or whatever else, awesome. That isn't to say that there's going to be a lot of volume on any of those other chains, but just having that option, having the utility makes REN more important. It encourages those dark nodes, master nodes to exist. And there's your total supply demand component right there. Technicals on the USD, BTC, and ETH pairs all look increasing levels of bearish from USD to ETH, with what for me is just a wait and see as to what comes out of this. All of these collectively also show most of these reversals took many months, in all these pairs. So it's not like you're going to get surprised. Even on the ETH pair, the swift looking reversal gave you a heads up with the cloud metrics on the daily. So I don't think it's prudent for me to jump into any of this stuff just yet. And if you want to see how I'm trading BTC and ETH for Technique Capital, you can pop on over to enzyme.finance. Check out the non-custodial portfolio management tool. You can participate through depositing USDC if you'd like, or just see what I'm doing. You can look at all the trades, deposits, withdrawals, the allocations, what I do and when, that sort of thing. We also have a managed DeFi portfolio that's being initialized. REN will be a part of this at some point in time as well. Not currently listed, but definitely one I'm keeping a close eye on in the DeFi space. So that's all I have for this one. Like, dislike, comment, share, subscribe.